SUVs are taking over the world, but the luxury executive sedan segment is still going strong. In fact, for Mercedes-Benz, the E-Class and the C-Class are still doing very well. They are the highest selling models. The C-Class's arch rival, the 3 Series, is now back in an all-new avatar, an all-new generation. But before we find out how they all stack up, where's the Audi A4? Well, the A4 is missing because it's aging, it's absent, and a new A4 has already been shown in the European market, and we expect it to come to India sometime in 2020. So until that happens, we'll excuse the A4 from this comparison. How does the 3 Series and the C-Class stack up? Well, that's what we are here to find out. Both the cars take a different design approach. The C-Class, like most of its coupe siblings, seems to arc a seamless curve from the bonnet to the boot, with a small upward kink in the rear that makes it look like a spoiler. Its headlights, with a complex new design, up the sophistication for this car, and the look is complemented further by the diamond grille. Both cars turn heads, and the fact that the C-Class manages that even after 6 years of existence is a big feat. The 3 Series is a revolutionary design in the model line, chucking the simple form of the predecessor for an aggressive new design and a sporty low-slung stance. The new 3 Series looks gorgeous, but if you are a driving enthusiast, it will look more desirable to you in its M Sport trim. At the moment, in India, the M Sport trim of the 3 Series is exclusive to the sporty 330i variant, the petrol. The diesel comes only in the sport or the luxury trims. This one right here is the luxury, that's why the extra bling, the extra chrome. The C-Class in comparison, the 300D, comes in the AMG line, which means it looks a lot similar to the C-AMG. And that adds a hint of sportiness to its otherwise elegant design. The AMG line also adds 18-inch wheels to the mix, and the all-black option looks very appealing in my opinion. They beg for a matte finished bodywork, much like the S-Class coupe. The wheels on the 3 Series are 17 inches and the design is typical BMW. They make the 3 Series appear lower and more road-hugging than the C-Class, though the height of both the cars is identical. The BMW is marginally longer and wider though, and its new age packaging helps in liberating far more space than what its dimensions would otherwise suggest. The elongated exterior dimensions of this car have had a positive impact on the cabin. It's larger, and the immediate advantage is right here at the rear. Out of the trio, this is the roomiest rear seat that you can get. It's also the most comfortable. The seats are very nicely laid out, nicely contoured, very comfortable, and you can squeeze 3 adults in the back if you really have to. And if you have to do it, this is the better car to do it with. And since that could get stuffy, there is thankfully a 3-zone climate control in here, which the C-Class doesn't get. Knee room is pretty decent, but you sit in a bit of a knees up position in the C-Class. Also, I think it could have done with better under-thigh support. The contouring is quite good, but the angle of the backrest, a little steeper for my liking, steeper compared to the 3 Series as well, so may not be comfortable for all. So definitely do take a test drive and figure out what is good for you. 3 adults, not happening in here. You have this big tunnel right here, which is not going to make things very comfortable for the person sitting in the center. You get a center armrest and you get cup holders that open outward instead of upward like you have in the 3 Series, and I prefer this particular design. What I also like is, though this car or the rear seat is not as roomy as that of the 3 Series, it certainly feels airier in here, and that is thanks to the panoramic sunroof. But both car makers confirm that these sedans aren't usually opted by those driven around, and therefore the driver's seat takes prominence in terms of the kit and the creature comforts. The cabin of the 3 Series, it's just hard to find faults with when it comes to its materials. The fit and finish, it is just perfectly done. I also like that compared to the 330i that I reviewed recently, which had those printed inlay panels, these wood panels really look nice. On the luxury trim, it really lifts the mood, makes it feel luxurious, so I really like it. The infotainment, well, it's very easy, very intuitive to use as compared to what you get in the C-Class, and the multitude of input choices that you get with it, touchscreen, rotary dial, it just makes it a lot easier to use, and I like that experience. It's a pity that the diesel misses out on gesture controls and even Android Auto, making you feel shortchanged. The infotainment of the new 3 Series now also has a digital assistant, and because we did not speak about it much in the 330i review, let's get into the detail right here. So you have the voice recognition feature, you also have a switch on the steering wheel. You can use that to summon either one of these to summon the digital assistant. But that also means that if you are paired with the Apple CarPlay like I am right now, this particular switch doesn't work with Siri. To summon Siri, you have to use the home button on the CarPlay. You keep it pressed down, and that is how Siri gets activated. This button, like I said, can call on the digital assistant. You can also use voice recognition. You can also choose what activation word you want. You can personalize it as long as it's a word that the computer can understand. So I have personalized it right now in the memory of the car that's not here. So, hello Audi. Hello Audi.
Hello. What can I help you with?
Nothing, thank you.
Try again.
Nothing, thank you.
Hello. What can I help you with?
Cancel.
All right.
Well, so you see, it doesn't pick up any natural lines like some of the other newer digital assistants do. Here you have to feed it lines or commands that it knows of. So in that sense, it's a bit robotic and not as conversational as I would have liked as compared to some of the other digital assistants.
Hello. What can I help you?
Cancel, cancel. I don't need help with anything. Thank you, Audi.
Unfortunately, this function is currently not available.
While Mercedes-Benz has a similar assistant called Hey Mercedes in some of the newer cars equipped with the MBUX, the aging C-Class misses out on that technology. The layout of the infotainment is very similar to the MBUX systems that you get on the newer Mercedes-Benz cars, but I really hope that this gorgeous tablet that you have right here was also equipped with a touchscreen that would make inputs much easier than what you currently have with this car. I really hoped it would happen. With the newer Mercedes-Benz C-Class models that you can buy today, you also get a digital instrumentation. Sadly not on this particular car. This car is not equipped with it, but that's also quite intuitive. What is not intuitive are these little touchpads on the steering wheel which control that infotainment and the instrumentation as well, and it's a little iffy in the way it works, so I'm not a big fan of this particular input mechanism. But overall, this cabin I really liked. When this cabin came out in 2013, inspired by the flowing lines of the S-Class, it had really wowed me. Does it wow me today? I think it does. Not as much as it did back then, of course, but it still is one of the best cabins that you can buy in a luxury car, and not just this particular space. I really like the design. It looks quite nice. It's very satisfying for the kind of money that you're going to be spending in this particular category. Neither of these cars will give you the top drawer audio equipment that is otherwise available on their pricier siblings, but the audio quality is really good and comparable to each other. The C-Class has a noticeably better air conditioning performance and a stronger flow compared to the more silent yet diffuse flow of the 3 Series. Having 3 vents in the center console helps the C-Class. The storage spaces are also better organized in the C-Class. The rear seats of both these cars have a 40-20-40 split, so in terms of versatility, well, they are closely matched. But in terms of boot space, so India mandates these cars or all cars to have a spare wheel. That means that this one has an additional contraption, though very well designed. This one just straps it into the boot. It's a space saver in both, but this can be removed. It can be kept at home if you need that additional space. This one can't. So if you need that additional boot space, you might be better off with the C-Class. In terms of the loading, well, the loading lips of both the cars are almost comparable, but this has a wider aperture, so loading your luggage is much easier in this. But in terms of absolute space, this one wins it. Getting a good driving posture is easy in both the cars, though it's a little bit better in the C-Class because the seats are electrically adjustable. They are in the 3 Series as well, but you don't get an adjustable lumbar support in this, which you do in the C-Class. And then you also have that Mercedes lettering on the windscreen, the flowing dashboard. All of that feels nice. All of that makes it feel like it's a luxury car. Even the steering wheel is electronically adjustable. This one is mechanically adjustable. So it does leave you wanting for more, until the time you take your first corner in this car. that is where you feel like you are in control of the mechanicals. Everything nicely wraps around you. Everything makes you feel like an enthusiast, and that's a very good feeling to have. Now that's a feeling that you have to make a choice between. Do you want to feel like an enthusiast, or do you want to feel like you have been pampered with luxurious elements? If it's the latter, the C-Class is your car, but if it's driving fun that you seek, the 3 Series is the one to go for. The driving dynamics of the C-Class are surprisingly good for a Mercedes-Benz, and those 18-inch wheels, well, they certainly help in that regard, also impart a feeling of having sharper turn-ins with this car as compared to its lesser models. But these 18-inch wheels are also a matter of worry when you encounter sharper bumps, deeper potholes. That does tend to make this car thud through them, crash through them. So if poor roads are going to be a part of your daily commutes, definitely go in for a size smaller on the wheels. But overall, the ride quality is quite good. It's just as pliant, as plush as you would expect a Mercedes-Benz to be. If you need anything more planned than this and are ready to sacrifice a bit of the fun dynamics, the A4 is the one to go for. Between the two cars here, the C-Class also feels more stable at highway speeds. The flip side is that it feels pretty heavy through the bends and switchbacks compared to the 3 Series, which feels light and agile. Even its steering feels a tad bit heavier than the BMW. The figures in which the 3 Series does manage to trump the C-Class is the braking distance, the braking times. Of course, it can be argued this is a newer car, lesser mileage, newer tires compared to the 10,000 km run C-Class that we have in this test. But then again, the C-Class is a heavier car, so it does carry more momentum into a braking maneuver, and that shows in the additional braking distance that it has. Now, it's not something that is unsafe for sure, but yes, it has a longer braking distance. For the 3 Series, one bit I don't like about its braking is when at moderate speeds you want to come to a complete halt. When you do come to that complete halt, at that particular moment, you get this little jolt, a little head nod, and that is essentially when the gearbox is engaging the first gear while coming down to a complete halt. And that is when you get that little head nod, which I wish was ironed out for a luxury car like this. The diesel 3 Series seems to be softly sprung as compared to the 330i that we drove recently, and yet I like the driving dynamics. They are very predictable, they are quite fun. In fact, I like the balance that it achieves between a pliant ride and those taut cornering dynamics. That balance, very frankly, is something new to the 3 Series. It wasn't this good earlier. It was always a driver's car, but in terms of the ride quality, well, it always suffered. This one doesn't, and that's what I really like about it. That balance is what I really like. The C-Class, well, it comes very close to this balance. In fact, it's got the better ride quality for sure, but it also comes very close in terms of its handling dynamics, which is what I like. But when you start pushing the two cars harder, that is when the difference between their handling dynamics starts widening, starts getting evident. The C-Class starts becoming a little wallowy, it feels a bit skittish, especially over undulated surfaces, whereas this one feels a lot more in control. So much so that you come out of every corner feeling like a hero. So if you are a driving enthusiast, yet again, I'm saying the same thing, the 3 Series is the car to go for. The 4-cylinder diesel engine in the C300D, well, it's marginally lower on the displacement as compared to the 320D, but significantly higher on the power and torque outputs, and that shows in the way this thing sprints. Mercedes-Benz claims that it will go from 0 to 100 in 5.9 seconds. In these wet conditions in our test, the best that we could manage was a 6.4 seconds, with a noticeable wheel spin or a wheel slip happening when moving from the first gear to the second. The slip almost feels engineered though, and frankly it adds a bit of drama that sort of goes with the AMG inspired bodywork. In terms of the refinement, the engine in the C-Class is a tad bit noisier with its diesel clatter as compared to the one in the 320D. In fact, the 320D, the engine is quite muted. You need a reminder that it's a diesel and not a petrol. In fact, there is a reminder on the fuel gauge that says it's a diesel, and that's a good thing. But in terms of outright refinement, whatever my memory serves me, the Audi A4 has the most refined diesel engine in this category. And yeah, that is the one to go for. If I had to put everything in order, the A4 would top it, followed by the 3, followed by the C. But they're all refined enough to be fit for a luxury car. So there's hardly anything to pick between them. The engine of the 320D, it may be low on power and torque, but in terms of feels, it is right up there. It has launch control, and whether or not you engage it, It is not difficult to get to the claimed 6.8 second 0 to 100 run. We've had multiple runs in this car while testing it, and most of them have been bang on that claimed time. What I also like is this engine comes very close to that of the C-Class when it comes to in-gear acceleration. Of course, the outright acceleration, the in-gear acceleration is still not as quick as the C-Class. Some of it is just marginally lesser than the C-Class. But that's what I like about it. It comes that close even with lesser power and torque, but more importantly, it feels faster, it feels more eager, it feels much brisker than what the C-Class has to offer, and that makes it more engaging to drive. That is also courtesy of the quick 8-speed gearbox that it is mated to. The gear shifts are fast, they are smooth, and the gearbox is also very quick to respond to part as well as full throttle inputs. On the flip side, the engine in the C-Class runs more relaxed at highway speeds, and that shows its gains in the fuel economy. The C-Class is not only more powerful, but also more fuel efficient. It's also BS6 compliant, which the 3 Series surprisingly isn't as of now. Both car makers offer buyback schemes on these models and assure about 55 to 56% resale value after 3 years. But the BS6 compliance and a stronger list of features could pay their dividends for the C-Class by offering a better resale value in the aftermarket. 3 Series is definitely the more involving car to drive, and an enthusiast like me will certainly choose it in a heartbeat. But all things considered, the C-Class offers a better overall value, and despite being a 6-year-old car, it still has the poke to give the 3 Series a serious run for its money. All of that shows in the final points tally, and the C-Class emerges as the winner of this test.